Sir, in your thoughtful address, you have rightly observed that the country's welfare and progress demand close cooperation between government and entrepreneurs. The understanding of each other's points of view is the starting point of such cooperation. It is in that spirit that I address you today. The decade which is drawing to a close was to be the decade of development, but our expectations have been belied. In our own country, we have been passing through a number of harrowing experiences in quick succession, and this has checked the march of development. Yet, these very setbacks have made planning all the more necessary. The realization is also dawning that the problems generated by the recession, such as the unemployment of the educated, can be solved only by regaining the tempo of development. We must make up for lost time. Our economic problems present a special challenge at this stage of transition to a higher level of technology. This would have been the case even without the invasions on our borders, the drought, and the political uncertainties that we have been through. You have rightly said that change generates challenge. Our expectations grow, competition grows between class and between one region and another. Fortunately, the gradual easing of the agricultural crisis and of the industrial recession has enabled us to move forward decisively and to bring about a new outlook amongst our people. The fourth plan has now been launched. I shall be interested in your comments and criticisms. Constructive criticism is always welcome, and it is right that the plan should evoke countrywide discussion. But while the debate is still on, we must implement the plan. We find again and again that the mere fulfillment of statistical targets is not enough. Planning is not a game of numbers. It has always been an exercise in social engineering. This is more so today. Planning must increasingly provide dependable solutions to social problems. Targets themselves represent some of the social objectives. But statistics should not make us lose sight of the social facts behind the figures. We want a higher growth rate in agriculture and industry, but the price we pay for it should not be in greater disparities and larger concentration of economic power. The government cannot content itself with the creation of the infrastructure, leaving the building of the superstructure for individuals to do as they like. The state has the responsibility of building a fabric which ensures economic strength combined with social justice. I am glad, therefore, that you have recognized and accepted the directive powers of the state, as also the important role played by the public sector in response to economic necessities and in pursuit of the social objectives of our people. The public sector must justly itself by its efficiency. I agree that a basic requirement for increased efficiency in the public sector is the induction of professional expertise instead of mere administrative talent. We often speak of the constraint of resources. This is real enough, but even more real is the shortage of managerial ability, a shortage shared by public and private sectors alike. It is easier to raise capital, to construct buildings, and to install machinery than to develop managerial skills necessary to run a plant at a high degree of efficiency. It is easier to buy technical know-how than to develop it ourselves. It is harder still to unite technical and managerial know-how under the same roof. For tasks which demand initiative, comprehension, and competence, we must have the best men from wherever we can and whatever be their background, whether they are in the public or in the private sector. The shortcomings in the private sector are supposed to react only on the entrepreneurs, although this is not wholly true because private enterprise also involves the wealth of the nation. But shortcomings in private sector management directly involve the money and the hopes of the people as a whole. As a result of numerous studies, we have initiated several steps to improve the performance of the public sector. Our appointments now do reflect a trend towards the employment of more persons with professional understanding and grasp of industry and business. Another important point you have raised is about regional imbalances which create social tensions. This is a matter of deep concern to me. There have been agitations in several parts of the country. Gone are the days when people were resigned to their lot and accepted the affluence of others as a decree of providence. Each individual wants a place for himself, and rightly so. If he sees others get more, his impatience increases. This is true of regions. You have referred to delay in the creation of a national power grid. Your criticism is valid, but an examination of the reasons for the delay will give an inkling of some of the problems of planning, especially when the responsibility is shared. Decisions are sometimes delayed because they must be governed by reasoning, argument, and the interplay of regional and national considerations. We are all agreed that there should be a national grid. We have taken a decision on it. However, the implementation was to a very large extent the responsibility of the states. This responsibility is safeguarded by the states. Consequently, many programs of national importance can be implemented only through the process of persuasion. The work will have to be done by the states, but financial resources will be provided by the center. At the same time, it is worth noting that regional grids have done good work in the north, south, and east. Mysore power was fed into Madras at a time when insufficient rains affected power production there. Thus, it is through the plan that our economy can move forward, and it is for the plan to set right economic wrongs. I congratulate workers, farmers, and other sections of the people on the determination, courage, and identity with national purpose shown by them in supporting the government's program of economic stabilization. The government is aware that there is no room for complacency, as there are still sizable imbalances between supply and demand in several important sectors of economy. The international economic situation is also full of uncertainties. We have to face challenges and overcome them.